Hi everyone, and welcome to another Unreal Engine 4 tutorial. Today I'm sort of doing another entry in a kind of unofficial ad hoc series I've been doing on fundamentals, like foundational aspects of the engine, since you guys seem to like my video on Eventic and my video on the different classes of the engine. So I thought I'd do something similar here and have a bit of a chat about interfaces, because interfaces are a little daunting, particularly for beginners, but once you get your head around them, they're actually very simple, and personally, I abuse the hell out of interfaces as I'm working, because it's just a great tool to enable blueprint communication. Really, is what they're used for. But in actuality, interfaces just create some shared functionality that can be called on by other blueprints and then triggered on yet other blueprints. So you can enable some blueprint communication without using casting or any sort of complex referencing. So enough jabber, let's get started. Just right click in your content browser here, head to blueprints and find a blueprint interface. I'm just going to call this one test interface. We're underscore int, so we can sort of name it as an interface, and we'll go ahead and open him up. And here we have, as we can see up here in the top right, a read-only, and also here at the top, a read-only graph. So we can't actually make any nodes here, but this is just going to show us sort of what's happening with our interface. So up here in functions, we've got a new function. I was going to call this test func. Actually, I'll call this test event, and I'll tell you why in a sec, and give it a 0, I suppose. So if we just leave this as is, what we have here is just a single sort of fire and forget interface call. And it says functions here, but the way this will work in blueprints without any inputs or outputs, say if we go over to our third-person character, and I might just double check that I've got, third-person character as default pawn. So we'll open them up. Already got him open. Then up here in the, you have some buttons up here in the toolbar, which I've just made a little smaller. If we go to class settings, over here we see a drop-down called interfaces, and no interfaces at the moment, so we can add an interface. What do we call our interface? Actually, I forgot now. Oh, test interface is there at the top. So we add our test interface. We'll just compile that so everything's good to go. Save it as well. And over here on the left in the My Blueprint window, we have an interfaces drop down with our test event in it. Now, we're not going to touch this over here on the right, but if we right click on our graph and start typing in test event, we can see here we have an add event, test event 0, which is our event from the interface. I feel like I'm saying event a lot, but it's an event. It's an event from the interface. So if we go back to our interface and make ourselves a new function, call this one test func, give it a number as well. Oh, my caps lock's on. Start over. Test func 0. Okay, now this time, if we add an output to it, if we give it a return, we see we automatically get a boolean, but this could be anything. Same sort of input-output rules as conventional events and functions, that kind of thing. Let's call this return, compile it, and save it. And as we can see in our read-only graph here, it's given us a return node, sort of similar to how you would see by default a function. If we head over to our third-person character again, we see over here on the left, we now have a second entry in our interfaces. This is our test func, the function we just made. And as you can see, if I can unhighlight it, it is blue. So it's going to be acting as a function. If I double-click this, we get a traditional sort of function window. Whereas if I double-click the event, nothing happens. It's just an event. It's a fire and forget piece of code here that's just going to run off just like a conventional event. This little icon up here just denotes that it is indeed an interface. We can also call this function here in the graph. We can just click and drag it off. We see we have our target, which is it's the interface itself, and our return, which is that boolean that we made before. And as you can see, there's no sort of input execution branch for the event, but there is for the function, again, to delineate the fact that this is a function, not an event. And the way that you can delineate that is by, as we saw before, adding a return to an interface function. We'll have it treated like a function, whereas not having a return, we'll have it be treated like an event. We can even add inputs too. So if we just, I don't know, give it a boolean input and compile and save, so it'll be the same. Nothing's changed about the nature of the event. It's just now got this input boolean. All right, so usage. How do we use interfaces? How can we enable blueprint communication with this tool? Let's head over back here to our map here. I'm just going to place a couple of actors. Let's just grab a cube. Let's get a cube into the world. We might need some materials as well, but first we'll also get a trigger box. Here we are, box trigger, which I'll make a bit bigger like this. Move it over to the side. Yeah, I'll move this cube over as well. We'll head back to the details panel. I want to be able to see this this trigger box in game, so we're just going to uncheck this hidden in game variable. I'm going to hit play, and we'll just see. There we are. We can see our box. We can see the cube, and we'll go ahead and sort of make ourselves a simple material here. Just going to cube mats like that, and I'm just going to hold in 3 and click for a color. We'll set this color. We'll set it to bright red. Just for the sake of our test, hook this up to base color, save. All right, and we have a very, very simple red material, but it's just for testing purposes so that we can see the functionality work before our eyes. The next step is to head up here to the top. We want to open the level blueprint. Now, we could also add the interface to the level blueprint if we wanted to. We can add the interfaces to any sort of actor, but all we're going to be doing is actually select our box trigger and then add an event for the box trigger. We want collision on actor begin overlap. So this is just an overlap event for our trigger box. The other actor, actually, before I go on, I'm just going to grab a reference to this cube. We will need it going forward. You could also do that by breaking off the level blueprint, heading to World Outliner, and dragging assets directly onto the graph like that. The other actor is going to be our player pawn, which is the third-person character. So let's. So we could make a check for third-person player character if you get the player pawn if we wanted to. But the whole idea of this is to not use casting, not use referencing, to make sure we got the right actor. So we're going to come out of this other actor, type in has, is it has? Does implement, it's not has, it's does implement interface. And the interface is going to be our test interface. There we go. And we can hold in B and click for a branch and just hook up the return value of that little function there. So if the actor that overlaps this trigger box is using this interface, then we can come out of here true, and we can fire off test event. And as we can see here, it's a class. It's in our test interface, and it is our test event 0. Now we see here message. So that's this little, denoted by this little envelope here at the top. It just means it's an interface call. It's just a message interface call, and this so this won't obviously won't fail because anything that overlaps this this trigger box is being checked if it has this interface. But we also don't have to do this. We can just go straight into our test event because it's not going to crash the game if we fire off this interface event and the actor that's overlapped doesn't have that interface. It's tolerance, in other words. Whereas, certain other functionality can crash the engine if it's looking for a function that's not there. But in this case, because we're using just the message call, then it is going to be perfectly fine. And that event, which runs on the pawn, the character, over here rather. So that's our test event here. So with our test events, if we grab our mesh, we'll do it this way. If we grab our mesh, and set material. In the material, we'll make it our cube map from before. Hook this up, and we're basically ready to test this out, I think. So in theory, when we run over our trigger box, our player should turn red. Oh, we have a problem. Aha, of course. We have no target set for our event, so it's just firing that into the wind. That will crash the engine. So we want to hook this up to our other actor. So we're testing if that actor has this interface, that if it does, fire the event on that actor, which is our third-person character. So we'll compile that, save everything, and we walk onto the box, and boom, we've just turned our mannequin a nice pretty color red using interfaces. No casting necessary at all. So let's see here with our cube, we'll do it without using the what am I thinking of? Level blueprint. So let's make ourselves a new blueprint class, an actor, cube. Oh, actually, we'll do this right. We'll go cube underscore BP. Open up, add a cube. Just make that the root, compile, save, and we want the interface add test interface, compile, save. This time we'll use the function. So we'll come into the function node here, make ourselves a little bit of room, grab our cube, set material. Here we go, and hook this up. Get our cube mat. There we are, compile and save. And now, so there's nothing in our event graph. In fact, we can just delete these just to show the point. Nothing in our construction script. We've just got a little bit of functionality in this function call. So we can compile and save our cube and close that. Over here in the level blueprint, we have our cube here. We can run this event. Run this event on the cube, and it's not going to work, obviously, because we've used the event, not the function. So come out of this cube here. We want test func, the test function. And in fact, we'll skip this check altogether, actually. Oh no, we don't want to do that because it might just might just grab the ground or something like that. So if our player pawn, that's the check we'll make. So we go other actor equals equal, and the asset is the third person character. There it is. I hope that's the right one. I think in my old tutorial project there's a couple of them. So if it is our third person character, then we'll run this function on the cube. And we walk on the cube. Oh, right. No, because we're just using the same cube asset, whereas we need to place our actual actor here in the level. So we'll do that first. And then back in our map, we need to call our cube actor. So we'll just right click, get a reference, plug that in. And I don't think that will work either. But if we come out of here and just get our player pawn. So we get player pawn. So if we are overlapping it with the player pawn, then this will return true and we'll run the function on our cube blueprint. So we hit play and bang, red cube, nicely done. And that's all using interfaces, like I said before. So save that, and that's really all there is to using interfaces. So they come in two types. If they have a return, then they'll act as functions. If they do not have a return, then they act as events. And there are a few nodes that we can use. For example, does implement interface, which we talked about before. Which will just test to see if an actor is using an interface. I mean, these Boolean checks, they don't cost enough to justify not using. So yeah, you always make the check first before running the function. Or if appropriate, yeah, you don't have to do that either because it's a tolerant function call. It won't break anything if the actor that you're calling, that's this target here, doesn't use the interface. Yeah, so that's interfaces for you. It's just a very handy way to enable some easy, simple blueprint communication. Used quite a lot in, like for example, VR development. You have interfaces for picking up objects. In shooters, you might have an interface for communicating between the player and the gun that they're holding, things like that. Anyway, that's about it from me for today. If you would like to get in touch with me, as always, the easiest way is via Discord. There'll be a link down in the description of this video. And if you would like to support the channel, support what I do, and motivate me to make more videos, you can make a one-time donation via PayPal. That'll be in the description as well. Or you can head over to my Gumroad store, where you can purchase a product and get something in return for your support. So, plenty of options there. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.